p.m. I will call the Common Council meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Dankert,
Here.
Gallops is absent. Gatsky,
Here.
Iverson,
Here.
Creamer is absent. Schatzinger,
Here.
Sorensen,
Here.
Split,
Here.
Mayor Grant is here. We have 6 and 7 with Mayor Grant.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, I have a prayer submitted from Reverend Mundell. Please join me in prayer. Gracious and loving God, let your spirit rest upon this meeting and the business conducted here today on behalf of the community of Ripon. Bless all those working for the city with your wisdom and discernment. Open all of our hearts and minds to seek the greater good for the whole community rather than just looking to meet our own needs. Help us to always listen to each other and never lose sight of our humanity with our ideology. We especially pray tonight for all service members, especially our police. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Doug, second by Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Now it's time for public comment. This is the opportunity for citizens to come before the council with comments and concerns on any current city issue, knowing no action may be taken tonight. I ask that you keep it civil and respectful and within 5 minutes. However, discussion of personnel or individual members of the Common Council shall not be permitted. I expect you to be respectful, and in return, I expect the council to treat the citizens with the same respect. Before you begin, please state your name and address for the record. We have John Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Johnson, 628 Sunrise Drive. I'm here tonight because I'm a little frustrated with your billing service for water and sewer. I've gotten 2 bills from them since the first of the year for a water and sewer penalty. And I've sent them 2 messages asking them why, and they have failed to respond to either one. So I believe they are not providing the service you are paying for. They can't answer a simple question. Why am I being billed a penalty? None of my bills have been late. They've all been paid on time. So I don't believe you're getting the service that you're paying for or the service that the citizens of the city deserve. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for bringing up the concern. All right. All right, then we'll move into our agenda items. First, we have like 2, 3, 4 open outdoor container entertainment event permit applications. These are all put forward by Ripon Main Street. First one for the Spring Wine Walk on April 24th. Second for the Sip and Stroll on June 27th. Third, Rhythm and Brews on October 9th. And finally, a Holiday Wine Walk on November 6th. We can take these all together if you would like.
I move that we approve the open container entertainment event permit applications for the following: the Spring Wine Walk, the Sip and Stroll, Rhythm and Brews, and the Holiday Wine Walk.
I'll second.
A motion by Ellen, second by John. Any discussion? One last time, is there any discussion?
And did you know me? Craig, you're here. I always like to offer that opportunity for you to share anything since you took the time to come, if you'd like to. I have no specific questions other than I've heard good things from these events, and I'm glad to see that you're bringing people into our community.
Yes, so there's no change from our previous events. We will work with the police department to hire security. The applying for all 4 open container requests makes it a little simpler to keep things in order, especially with city staff as they, as this for one thing or a different thing. Doing it all at once just seems to make more sense. And that's what Naomi had also suggested before she left. So we're going to rinse and repeat, and the process is working, so we're just going to repeat it.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion?
No concerns from Chief?
No concern.
If there is no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the outdoor open container entertainment event permit applications for the Spring Wine Walk, Sip and Stroll, Rhythm and Brews, and Holiday Wine Walk, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution recognizing and commending Kelly Schmuhl. Is it Schmuhl? Sorry. Schmuhl. For 36 years of dedicated service. Chief, do you have any presentation at all?
Why don't you go ahead with your resolution and then I'll talk.
Very good. All right. Whereas Kelly Schmuhl has honorably served the community for 36 years as administrative assistant for the City of Ripon Police Department, and whereas throughout her career, Kelly has provided essential administrative leadership and support, ensuring the efficient daily operations of the police department and serving as a vital resource to the department staff and the public. And whereas Kelly's professionalism, institutional knowledge, attention to detail, and commitment to public service have contributed significantly to the effectiveness, accountability, and responsiveness of the Ripon Police Department. And whereas through her dedication, reliability, and positive presence, Kelly has supported multiple chiefs, officers, and staff while demonstrating exceptional service to the residents of the city of Ripon. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Ripon City Council formally recognizes and commends Kelly Schmuhl for her outstanding and dedicated service to the city of Ripon and its residents, and express sincere appreciation for her contributions to the safety, service, and well-being of the community. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion by Doug, second by Ellen. Chief?
Thank you for the resolution. I think the comments that you made say a lot about what Kelly's done for us over the last 36 years. I've had the pleasure of working with her for 35 of that. And it's interesting because Kelly was, give you a little bit of history, she was the very first person that was hired by the police department in a full-time role as an administrative assistant for our department. So we've never had to replace that position for 36 years. So I think that says a lot about her, says a lot about her work with us. As you can see, we have a number of officers here tonight that wanted to come and represent the police department as well, because we think very highly of Kelly and the work that she's done with us. We can't express enough how thankful we are for her and what she's done for us. And we certainly wish her all the best as she moves forward with her next part in her life. And we wish her all the best as that happens. So she's here with us for a few more days, and then she will begin that new chapter. So again, thank you for the kind words, and if you have the...
I just want to say thank you.
All right.
Is there any discussion on the resolution? Ellen?
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that as we vote on this and approve, that we do a standing approval to show our gratitude to Kelly for her years of service.
Very good. If there's no further discussion, we'll have a standing roll call vote.
Dankert,
Yes.
Gatsky,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Schatzinger,
Yes.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Split,
Yes.
resolution carries.
It means she gets the golden ticket. That's 6 yeses.
All right, next item is a resolution recognizing, just do that one, sorry. Ordinance to amend section 10.22.130, enforcement and penalties of recycling chapter of the municipal code. This may look familiar because we did a very similar one the last meeting. The DNR has some recommended wording changes.
Yes, generally speaking, the previous amended version set penalties within our own municipal code. Specific to this provision in recycling, the Department of Natural Resources wanted specific reference to fees and fines within state statute. So those are generally heavier and universal than across the state for recycling programs. So simple general change from the previous work that was done on the amended ordinance last meeting. We submitted it, they said, we need you to approve this. So this is just kind of a carryover and a cleanup after we submitted what we thought was okay. They said no.
So this just takes our City of Ripon penalties and removes those out of the ordinances and puts in the Wisconsin state statute.
Correct, and we didn't want to change it to then reference these in the penalty section for this specific, and we wanted to reference the actual state statute, so they approved this language. We didn't want to put, because the first, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the first, in our penalty section, the first violation is $25. For this, it's $50. Correct. And so they have a very specific state statute for it, so we're just adopting that versus saying your first offense is 50, because if they change it or something, so this is, I think, a safer way of doing it.
I'll move that we adopt the ordinance to amend section 10.22.130C, enforcement and penalties of the recycling chapter of the municipal code.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote on the ordinance to amend section 10.22.130, enforcement and penalties of the recycling chapter of the municipal code.
Dankert,
Yes.
Hetzke,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Schatzinger,
Yes.
Sorensen,
Yes.
Split,
Yes.
carried 6.
All right. Moving on then, we have a presentation from the police department with an SRO therapy dog program.
Where's the dog? I brought a different one.
I'd have to,
Oh,
I might have to move or over.
that's your input.
Oh, come on.
There we go. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here to talk to you about School Resource Officer, Police Department, Therapy Facility Dog. A statement of purpose about this program is the City of Ripon Police Department will utilize trained therapy dogs to supplement department resources. The department will use the therapy dog program to encourage and cultivate positive relationships with the public through attendance at community events, while also supporting department members and providing comfort for people during times of crisis. The program's mission is to enhance the services of the department in providing therapeutic aid to employees, residents, and students by implementing well-trained dogs as a medium in those efforts. This is something I'm very passionate about. I believe that can be very, very beneficial to our community as a whole, to our police department, to our schools. And I'm going to explain and talk to you a little bit more about that. One of the main reasons is mental health. Mental health is a large component of our jobs. The majority of the calls we respond to have a mental health component to them. You can see by the department activity report that Chief had submitted to you guys from last year. Our number one calls for service was welfare checks. Close behind that is juvenile problems. And so I also have a strong belief that a lot of the calls that we're responding to outside of welfare checks and juvenile calls have a mental health component to them. And I believe that having a therapy dog would help aid in those calls. Research shows that pets offer emotional and psychological benefits that positively impact our well-being. They help combat that depression, provide structure and routine, and provide that emotional support. A therapy dog is another tool, like the tools we wear on our belt, the tools we have in our squad car, the tools we have accessible to us at the police department. A therapy dog is another tool. And I believe that is a tool that's accessible to us. There's an article written in the Chief of Police from Oshkosh said, "We have to find different ways to solve problems within our communities. And to do that, we need to use different tools available to us." A therapy dog would be another tool that is available to us to solve problems within our community. I could go on about examples where I think it would be beneficial, and I'll talk to you about some of those. I can tell you in the last couple of weeks, at one of our elementary schools, outside therapists come into our elementary schools, and some of them sometimes bring in their dogs. And just last week, one came in and had their dog. Our special education teacher knew that they were coming in and asked if they had extra time, if some of our students could come and pet the dog to have a reset. And I happened to be in the office when that happened, and I saw 4 kids come in, the dog laid down, and they just pet them, and they just had joy on their faces. They left that office, reset, and went back to their classroom. That same day, I was called because a student was dysregulated and put themselves in their locker. I went to talk to them, try to get them out. I knew that therapist was still in school, and so I asked if they'd be willing to come down with their dog. The student opened their locker, pet the dog, and was able to reset and go on with their day. Just a few examples to show how I feel that a therapy dog could be very beneficial. Therapy dogs are going to have a great benefit to us in many different aspects at our police department. It can comfort and support our department members. So I just talked about mental health. Mental health is not something that just affects the community we serve, but it also impacts our officers. And I feel that a therapy dog can help combat those things within our officers that we see in our community members. It can be a support for community, help in critical incident debriefs. In an article from Police One, they talked to a psychologist that helps lead critical incident debriefs, and those typically happen after high-stress situations, officer-involved shootings, officer-involved deaths. And he said his number one call is for a therapy dog, because he can go to a critical incident debrief, and an officer won't say a word, but they can't deny the presence of the dog. And so the dog can be there, and they can pet the dog and have the dog for them. There's a lot of research around this. A professor, assistant professor at the University of Arizona's College of Veterinary Medicine, Carrie Rodriguez, has been doing some research about therapy dogs. Specifically, she's been honing in on therapy dogs in law enforcement. And she's said that working with police officers for her research, she's seen that in addition to the psychological indicators of relaxation, just sitting down and petting a dog can promote a mindfulness effect where the officer is focusing on the dog's fur and their own breathing. And for just one moment, not thinking about a stressful case or a traumatic experience that they've had. She said that the mental break and the non-judgmental nature of the dog may help soften the hardened veneer of police officers and open the door for other types of mental wellness. Within the schools, it can help us build relationships, help me build relationships as a police officer. That is one of the biggest things being in the schools is to build those positive relationships with staff, students, and families. I believe that positive relationships are really important. When you think about a student's experience, right, they might have a positive experience with a police officer. They might have seen their grown up have a negative interaction with a police officer. But if I can provide that positive interaction with them and the dog helps, I think that's a win for us. The mental health of all of the above, right, our students, our staff, and our families. Foster connections that might not be present without the dog. I talked to a school resource officer here in Wisconsin that has a dog, And he said that there's students that typically won't talk to him, but because he has a dog, they'll come pet the dog. They still might not say words, but that's just created a connection with that student. That might not have happened if he didn't have the dog. It can help when kids are dysregulated, and then helping students, comfort student staff through anxiety, depression, and helping kids that are stuck. And lastly, our community. It can comfort community members in crisis mental health situations, comfort assault victims. In my role, I do a lot of sensitive crimes. I interview victims of sensitive crimes, and I feel that the therapy dog can be a great tool in those instances. It can be a comfort for families or people who have lost loved ones. And I just think that it's a tool that would be accessible to our entire community. I feel that I have a unique position within the police department, being the school resource and community liaison officer, that I can have a dog and impact all those areas. And I think it extends beyond just the police department, right? Like, we work closely with other first responders, with our EMTs and our firefighters, and so I think that we can really make an impact across all of our first responders. A little bit about therapy dog in school setting. I'm not going to go into all this. There's just research, more research around it, and just saying how they have positive impacts. Therapy dogs can improve perceptions of police officers. I found this great article from Wisconsin Public Radio, and it focused on school resource officers in Wisconsin. They talked with a school resource officer in La Crosse. He has a dog named Cheddar, and he said, during Cheddar's second week of visiting the schools, the puppy helped the student who was upset and not responding to school staff. Cheddar approached that student and showed compassion and was able to de-escalate the student. That opened the door for us to communicate once that student was calmed down. They spoke further to that La Crosse officer in regards to Cheddar, and he just says a couple things, one directly about the community, right? Like, he says, Cheddar is just another resource for us to share with our community and break down barriers when it comes to just interacting with anyone, to understand who we are as a department. Cheddar kind of helps humanize us as officers when we're interacting with really anybody in the community. And then he goes on to say, the children of this community are our future, which I believe is true here in Ripon also. There are times when there are struggles within the school building or within their lives that are then brought to school. And we felt if a therapy dog could assist in that area, meaning their department, then it's worth it. And then lastly, one of the officers from Wausau that has a therapy dog just says that as soon as he walks in the room with his therapy dog, you can tell that people like let their guard down and they're more willing to approach him and come by him with the dog. The next slide. So just some more school data. This is data taken from one of our elementary school counselors and myself's interactions with students who are dysregulated. And when we talk about dysregulation can look really different when we talk about our students. It could be they're having high anxieties. Maybe they're having high anxieties about coming to school and they don't want to get out of the car. I feel like a therapy dog could help in that instance. Maybe they're physically dysregulated, or they shut down and they just like won't move or talk. I think that, even if it's able to having the therapy dog get that student to a safe space until they're ready to talk or ready to go to their next step. And looking at some of those contacts that we've had, we found that in about 25% of our contacts, we felt that definitely a therapy dog would have helped and made a difference. We have wellness days within our schools. One of our elementary schools has a wellness day actually coming up shortly. And outside therapists will bring in their therapy dogs, and the kids are able to always give feedback after these wellness days. And some of the feedback that they give just it's unprompted, right? It's just like, what did you like about wellness day? I love the dogs. Therapy dogs was my favorite part. Keep the therapy dogs coming to school on wellness day. My favorite part was with the therapy dogs. So clearly, right, our kids enjoy the dogs also for many different reasons. The next, as you saw in the packet, was just a letter of support from the superintendent. I've been in contact with Mr. Rivard. He's been in contact with the school board, had conversation with them, and they fully support bringing dogs into the school. So then I'm sure many of your questions on your brain is, all right, sounds great, but how are we going to fund this, Lindsay? So this is where our community partnership comes in. I was approached by the First We Live Foundation, which is a local charity and foundation, and they're passionate about the therapy dog program and believe in having a program at the police department with the school resource officer serves the purpose of their mission. I'm humbled to say that First We Live Foundation has approved a grant to cover the startup entire first year cost of the program. At this time, would like to invite Tom Moniz, the president and co-founder of the First We Live Foundation, up to say a few words and talk to you a little bit about the foundation.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good evening. My name is Tom Moniz. I'm the president and co-founder of the First We Live Foundation, which is a 501c3 public charity. The First We Live Foundation was founded following the death of my wife, Nicole, who was a social worker and a tireless community volunteer that many of you knew. We started the foundation because we saw something happening in our communities and in our country. Too many young people struggling silently with anxiety, depression, trauma, and stress. And too often, the helping professionals who show up every day for others carrying their own invisible burdens as well. Our name reflects our core belief. Before we can succeed, perform, achieve, or serve, first we live. And living well requires intention, emotional safety, connection, and support. Our mission is to support and cultivate access to integrated mental health programs and services for those who encounter societal barriers in identifying and attending to their mental health needs, especially youth and those engaged in helping professions. That's why this program immediately resonated with our mission. Officer Michael's Therapy and Facility Dog Initiative is not just about bringing a dog into a school, it's about creating a bridge, a safe, non-threatening presence that helps students regulate when they are overwhelmed, anxious, or dysregulated. Her own data shows there are dozens of documented student interactions each month where a therapy dog could have helped de-escalate and support a child in need. This aligns directly with our commitment to proactive mental wellness for youth. But it also aligns with another pillar of our mission, caring for the caregivers. The program is designed to support officer wellness, helping relieve stress, trauma, burnout, and even assisting during critical incident debriefings. When we strengthen the mental health of our first responders, we believe we strengthen the entire community. And importantly, this is a true partnership. Our $10,000 grant covers the purchase, training, and startup costs for the dog with no cost to the city. This is upstream work. We think it's preventative. It builds trust between students and law enforcement, and it reflects exactly why we at the First We Live Foundation exist, to invest in mental wellness early, intentionally, and locally. On behalf of our foundation, I respectfully ask for your support of Officer Michaels and her therapy and facility dog program, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. These are just some cost slides that show the projected costs for that first year, which includes the purchase of the dog, the training, as Tom had mentioned, right, all those startup costs, kennels, to have a kennel at school, to have a kennel here at the police department, the FLSA, food, veterinary care. I have not talked to any local veterinarians yet in regards to providing care. Obviously, I want to talk to you guys first and go from there, but that definitely can be a conversation down the road. The next slide just kind of shows some ongoing projected costs. Like I said, it's not until I haven't talked about this yet, I'm sorry. The dog, I'll talk about this in training, but it's not until the dog becomes a year old or closer to 2 years that they actually like you to start the therapy dog program part of it. So those are projected costs over time. So there's like that second year cost, and then the ongoing cost is that $3,800. The kennel, so I've been working closely with On Golden Pond. It's a kennel out of Hilbert, Wisconsin. Todd and Jennifer Cronin have been great. When I first started doing a lot of research, I was recommended to a trainer, and I talked with him. Unfortunately, he is heading into retirement, but he was gracious enough to share all of his information with me and talks really about, from day one, when a puppy is born, what is so important to make sure that this is a successful therapy dog. And so I was really passionate about finding a kennel that would do that. And I talked with Todd and Jennifer, and they do biosensor training, and then on day 16, they have daily protocols. So this biosensor training includes tapping the dog's nose, putting their fingers in their mouth, putting the puppy on their back, tugging their tail, rubbing between their toe pads, rubbing backwards on their coat, they're tugging on their ears, providing the puppy opportunities to be on different surfaces, listening to CDs with various sounds like car horns, vacuums, thunder, and then socializing, and they have children handling the dogs, all before the 8 weeks that I would get the dog. So really important things to be having done day one when the puppy is born that they're doing, and I appreciate that. It would be a golden doodle. Golden doodles are hyperallergenic, about 25 to 30 pounds. The owner, Jennifer, actually works in the Hilbert School District, and she has one of their dogs in the school district with her as a therapy dog. So they're very passionate about the therapy dog program also, which is fantastic. Lastly, training. The goal with the dog is first a good citizen, a canine good citizen certificate. So basically what it is I would start classes with the puppy, do like puppy manners classes, advanced manners classes. Canine good citizen is like a checklist. When you think your puppy is ready, you take it to the trainer, they go through that checklist, and if your puppy passes, you get that canine good citizen certificate. And then ultimately continue that training. Like I said, once the dog becomes 1 year old, closer to 2 years is when they start those therapy training programs, and you can work towards that therapy dog. But it is, once you get the dog, you bring it into your environments, the police department, the schools, right away to get them accustomed. And speaking with some of the SROs in Wisconsin that have dogs, it was amazing. They're like, the one said by a couple months, their dog, they could take the dog to an elementary school cafeteria, and if you've ever been to an elementary school cafeteria during lunchtime, it's a lot sometimes. If it can be overstimulating, but their dog is not bothered one bit by that. And so it's just really important to get them into those situations. I just want to thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate you listening and hearing the information about Therapy Dog Program. Like I mentioned, I am very passionate about it. I think it would be an asset and another great tool in our tool belt per se at the police department and in our schools and in our community. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions for Officer Michaels?
Yes.
Yeah, so if the dog doesn't pass the therapy dog training, like on the first go, do they get another chance? You know, you'd continue the training and hands-on work and...
That's a good question. I don't know the exact answer to that, so I can't answer that. I guess I never asked that question.
Sure, yeah.
I'm more of a glass half full, so that is a great question to ask, but I appreciate that, and I can definitely follow up and get you an answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, oh, sorry.
And I guess as a follow-up to that, I guess underlying that is, well, and first let me just say, I am so grateful you are bringing this forward. As you know, I'm a school counselor, and so I've seen so many times where a therapy dog makes such an impact with you. And you named so many of the reasons why. What a phenomenal presentation to share. And so I am 110% in favor of this. But I guess as a follow-up, maybe what we're getting at is if we are in support of this, and if the dog doesn't pass, then would there be, I guess, another dog? Or how can we say, you know, as a body that we want this for our city?
Right.
So I guess when we pass this tonight, we are not supporting a dog, we are supporting that our city and you will have a therapy dog in essence, right?
The program in general, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, I definitely can follow up, and my thought is, yes, we can continue to train it and get to that place, but I will definitely follow up with that question.
And Doug, before I come to you, just for clarification, we are not passing the program tonight. If this is a positive feeling, then the next step would be to get a motion to bring it forward with a full policy, program policy and structure for this program. But tonight was just a presentation. We can elect to move it forward if we so choose. Doug?
Yeah, my question is, if the council approves this in the future, what would be the timeline to get a therapy dog? 1, 2 years, what?
Well, it could be as soon as we want. There was a litter that was just born, and so April 10th could be a dog, or there could be a dog, you know, in the next litter, which would probably be about summer.
Okay, thank you.
The question I have, which is probably going to be worked out through the policy,
Yes.
is in the summer months and other times when you're not in your SRO capacity, but just as a regular officer capacity, what happens with the dog during those periods?
Yeah, good question. So I envision it, coming to work with me every day, because I come to work as patrol. It can be my squad car can be at the police department, because it would be able to stay at the police department with other people when I'm not around, right? And it doesn't have to be kenneled. That's the purpose of it. If we need to kennel it, we can kennel it. If we had like a high priority call that the dog couldn't go on, we would just kennel the dog. But part of my summer duties is also community outreach. So being out there, getting the dog out there and being in different spaces to do those community outreach events.
As well as officers?
Absolutely.
Did you have more, Doug?
Would the dog be coming every day?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know some therapy dogs in the nearby school district are there not every day, most days.
So yes, and I think we have to figure that out, because I know initially it is sometimes really overwhelming for the dogs, so introducing them slowly at a time, especially if you're having 300 kids around them, or, we do have a dog in our elementary school with one of our special education teachers, and she sporadically brings it at times, and some of the other SROs that I've talked to will sometimes leave it at the police department for half a day and then come get it, kind of thing, especially in the puppy stages.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to say I'm in this 100%, and I would like to suggest the quicker we approve something like this, the quicker we can have the dog.
Like on the next agenda?
Like maybe on the next agenda, if we could.
Yeah, so Lindsay and I talked, she presented this to Chief Wallner and myself last week. I said as an introductory to the council, put together the presentation, bring it forward, ask questions. If there are holes or things we need to follow up on that are a concern to the council, we can, over the next 2 weeks, get those answers and then form a program. Sort of, she has in here kind of the overall purpose and mission, but really kind of getting the policy within the police department, how this is going to work. So that will come forward next as a formal adoption of the program with the acceptance of the donation. And I think Lindsay's can then move on it. But we just want to make sure that the program is developed and you are comfortable moving that forward as a council with the resources provided.
Speaking of resources, I just want to say, publicly how incredible it is to see the support that you're working with a local foundation to help support this as well. First We Live Foundation, incredible to see what this can do in the community. And I just want to say that it is incredible to see, Nicole's memory is still alive and well and impacting so many future youth. Well, and sorry, one more, I guess, official question. Do we have to worry about liability? I don't think I noticed any liability insurance. Is that just covered? That's just a general question I would have for the
Yep, so
policy.
it's just like the canine dog,
Okay.
it would be covered under the city's insurance. Certainly through policies in the program, we can address any of those things, but certainly we talked about that in our discussions, and it's something that we'll address.
That would be something as part of the ongoing budget.
Yeah, it would just, honestly, it's probably
Super.
small cost, if any.
Would anyone like to make a motion to bring forward a formal program policy and structure?
I would like to move that we have the police department bring forward a formal policy with regard to, let's see, if I have to use the therapy dog.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ellen, second by John. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of bring forward a formal program policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is another presentation from the police department regarding the flock camera systems. Chief.
Change pace a little bit here, right? So as Adam's getting that set up, this is a presentation we just wanted to present to you in reference to your questions about the flock camera system that has been implemented within the police department. I'm going to cover a couple things as we talk about this tonight. If you want to go to the next slide there, Adam. So we'll talk a little bit about what a flock camera is. We'll talk a little bit about how that works, what happens, big concerns about what happens to the data that we talk about within this program, and how we're actually using the flock camera system. So we'll cover a bunch of these things as we get through it. So flock camera, we hear that term flock camera. Really what it is a license plate reader camera. Okay, Flock is the private company that we facilitate, that we use for our camera system. They are a leader in the nation right now in reference to license plate reader functions. And so it's kind of like when you talk about Kleenex, there's all different kinds of Kleenexes, there's all different kinds of license plate readers. We'll generally say Flock camera. Flock is the company that we use, and it's a company that has 5,000 plus law enforcement agencies across the nation. There's about 200 plus Wisconsin law enforcement agencies. In addition to that, thousands of private industries and private corporations are using these types of cameras as well. So a lot of times now, even now, we're seeing, for example, I believe the Walmart in Fond du Lac has a flock camera out in their parking lot. If you go to Oshkosh in the Lowe's hardware parking lot, you'll see these cameras. So private companies are utilizing this company as well as law enforcement. Okay. Basically, all license plate reader cameras, including these flock cameras, have some technology within them that is general to most programs. They have a vehicle fingerprint search, which is, in simple terms, you can query types of vehicles, colors of vehicles, those type of things. There's an audit trail we'll talk about a little bit tonight. We'll talk a little bit about hot lists and hot list sharing and how that works. NCIC alerts, we'll talk a little bit about real-time alerts, those type of things. So there's a bunch of functions that these cameras can do, that it's incorporated with them, and we'll talk a little bit more about each one of these or some of these as we go through this program. So what do they do? Okay. An LPR camera basically detects a license plate and a vehicle. That's all it's recording. It's taking a photograph or an image of a vehicle and the plate. Okay. What it's not detecting is it's not detecting anything in reference to the operator of the vehicle. So it's not using any type of facial recognition. It's not identifying people. It's not identifying gender or race, any of those issues. Okay. There's an acceptable use policy when we talk about license plate reader cameras, and specifically our cameras. So that data that's collected, that photograph of that vehicle and that plate, is data that's collected by this camera, stored for 30 days, and then deleted after 30 days. Okay? It's never given to anybody else. It's never sold to another party. It's for that law enforcement use only. Okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Some of the prohibited uses of these cameras are issues like, which is a hotbed issue right now, immigration enforcement. So there's no use of it for that. Again, remembering we're not photographing people, we're not identifying people, we're identifying a vehicle and a license plate. Okay? Can't be used for traffic enforcement. Okay? So obviously, when we talk about that, a little bit of caveat here, so we can use it for investigating traffic-related issues. So for example, a hit and run or some type of issue involving traffic, but we can't use it for running a red light or speeding violations. It's not taking those images. That's prohibited by the state of Wisconsin. So it's not used for those type of traffic enforcement issues, okay? Can't use it for any type of harassment or intimidation, those things that we've talked about. And obviously, an officer can't access this for any type of personal use. Okay? So how does it work? Well, again, as we talk about license plate reader cameras, it's capturing a photograph of the vehicle, the license plate associated with that vehicle. So the courts have generally ruled, or historically ruled, that there is no expectation of privacy when it comes to a vehicle description or a license plate. That is something that you can see if you stand outside in front of City Hall here, or outside of your residence and a vehicle drives by on a public street. You can look at that vehicle and say, yep, that's a white colored car, maybe it's a Dodge, whatever, and the license plate as it drives by is this, okay? There's no expectation of you for that because it's observable for anybody that's passing by at any location or any time that they observe that vehicle, okay? So there's no expectation of privacy for that. Now, the data associated with that plate is different, okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So basically what the flock camera is doing is it's taking a photograph of that vehicle, the license plate, and depending on where that vehicle, where that camera is located, it gives us the location and the time and date of that photograph, okay? It does not access the Wisconsin DOT record, so it does not tell us who that vehicle belongs to. It does not associate anything with the ownership of the vehicle or identify who the owner of the vehicle is, okay? It does check anything that's entered into what we call the NCIC list, okay? So the National Criminal Information Center. So anytime we have, for example, a stolen vehicle that gets entered into our system, the NCIC system, nationwide, that says this is a stolen vehicle. So a law enforcement agency someplace entered that vehicle into the NCIC system, okay? So the camera may check that and say, hey, there's an NCIC identification here, and report that to the area law enforcement, okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So it can send an alert based on that NCIC entry to that local law enforcement agency, okay? So if we have a vehicle that drives by one of our cameras and it's entered as stolen, we may get an alert on that, okay? And say, hey, a stolen vehicle just went by this camera location, all right? It doesn't identify who the owner is. It doesn't identify anything else. It just tells us that, hey, you might have a vehicle that goes by. The officer then needs to verify that information before making any action on that vehicle to make sure that it is the vehicle that's described.
So you've got them out on West Fond du Lac Street. So
Yep.
if somebody's like westbound, would it notify your police department and Green Lake
No.
County? Just you?
Just us.
Okay. and
Just
then-
us or Fond du Lac County Dispatch Center.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So with the database, one useful tool these cameras can do is with silver alerts. Is that the same
Yes.
database?
Yes.
The NCIC?
Yep, anything, so an NCIC can be anything from stolen to wants and warrants. Somebody's associated with that vehicle, and an agency has entered that vehicle in association to this crime. Silver alerts, missing people, amber alerts, anything like that. Anything that's entered into that NCIC system. And just remember, it has to be entered by a law enforcement agency in order to get in there, okay? All right? Go ahead. So the big concern, one of the big concerns is what happens to that image? What happens to that data that's collected? Well, a couple things here. So there's only a retention period for 30 days. After 30 days, that information is purged automatically through the system, okay? The data that's there, in order to access that data, and we'll talk about some certifications, some process that officers need to do in order to access that data, but it's controlled by a login system, dual authentication that allows the officer to get into a system to even operate the system, okay?
So then do you download stuff for court or anything?
We can. So one of the things you'll see up there is that our RMS system, our records management system, so let's say we use an image, you know, we have a case that involves an image, we can mark in our records management system that there was a flock usage for this criminal case.
Does this tie in with the CAD system at all at
No,
dispatch? So
no.
it's a completely separate
Completely
system?
separate, yep. The only time it would get connected in would be with our records management system where we can mark a case that we used the flock camera for this specific case, okay? That helps us with tracking, see why we're using it, how we're tracking it, those type of things as well, okay? We'll talk a little bit too here about the organizational audit trail. So there's a process that happens, and I'll show you an example of that, about every query that's done within the system by our officers and how we can track that. Okay? Go ahead. So obviously, there's some things on this slide that me as a police chief in Ripon, Wisconsin can't really address. I mean, you know, there's some safety. This is direct from Flock. Just some highlights here. They've never been hacked with their information, ever. Yep.
Just a point of information on that, they did have in late 2025, more than a few dozen of their cameras were incorrectly configured and were visible on the public internet using a search engine query. So they were not hacked, but they certainly allowed all of their streaming information.
Well, and I can provide you information from Flock that will contradict what you just said.
I looked it up myself.
All right.
I saw the streams. It was scary.
Okay. So Flock is also what we call CJIS compliant. Okay. So CJIS is the National or Criminal Justice Information System. So what that is that's a security system that we have to comply with even as our agency in order to access those things like the DOT, driver's records information, automobile records information, criminal justice information, okay? We go through an audit process for CJIS to make us compliant. It's very rigorous. Flock is also compliant in that as well. So obviously they have some other security issues and security things that they profess with their system. So, and I know there's been a lot of questions about their security in regards to that. So I just share this with you directly from them. Okay. So what's our use been? Well, we began researching flock camera systems or license plate reader systems back in early 2025. And in March of 2025, we negotiated with Flock. We originally negotiated with them on a trial implementation for about 60 days. We talked about trying out 4 cameras within our community. We reduced that down to 2 and never installed 4. We only installed 2. So we installed 2 cameras in July of 2025, and those are the 2 cameras that still exist at West Fond du Lac and Westgate. Okay. The reason there's 2 at that intersection is because of the width of that intersection and for east and westbound lanes. You can't cover that whole intersection with just 1 camera. So there's 2 located at that intersection. The cost on those per camera is about $3,000. The contract talks about termination at any time if we need to do that. And there's no indication right now of any type of price escalation within this system. So just so that you're aware of that.
And is that just a subscription fee? It covers the cost of the camera
Yep.
and maintenance and everything?
Yep. If there's a problem, they also do an internal maintenance with it. So if, let's say, a camera goes offline, they get a notification of that. They just send me a notification that says, hey, your cameras are offline. They go in and they make the changes or the repairs to the camera and are able to fix that.
Are there any ongoing costs with them, like updating their, updates to their service?
That's not associated with us. We have a flat fee of
Okay.
the $3,000 per camera.
Okay,
Okay?
cool.
In order for our officers to utilize this system, okay, we're kind of strict in Flock is, as well as our internal policies and how we use this, okay? So in order to enter the Flock system, they have to be certified by Flock to access the system. So there's a certification process that the officers have to go through in order to learn about the system and then get certified in the access to the system. In addition to that, they have to get certification in the search tool aspect of the Flock camera. So in other words, if an officer wants to go and search a license plate for an investigation, there's a certification that they have to do in order to be able to do that. There's also an alert tool certification. So when we talked about getting those alerts on a vehicle that's been entered in NCIC, an officer can go in and enter that vehicle, or the law enforcement agency can, but there's a certification in order to be able to do that, okay? So those are the certifications through Flock. In addition to that, we've also adopted policy that is very stringent about our use of the system and what we can do. So that policy covered things that you saw probably if you reviewed that policy that I think you have a copy of, about the administration, the operations of the system. the retention, how we get into it, the accountability, those things, the releasing of any data, open records, if issues, any of that stuff, and you have a copy of that, and I certainly can answer any questions you have about the policy that I provided. Adam? We talked a little bit about that internal audit system. So every time that a query is done for a vehicle through the flock system, it supplies us with information about that. So it allows us to then go back and audit and see what officers are doing, how they're querying information on the system. So a unique system identifier will be generated for every search. It will identify the agency name, the date of the search, the time of the search, what networks were selected, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And then it also will identify the offense type. So why did the officer, what's the reason the officer was looking at this, okay? So here's kind of an example. I think you have if you see it in your outline, it might be a little bit better than looking across the room here. So just for this presentation though, I did remove from here. So what you would see in addition to what you're seeing up here. So again, we talked about the numerical ID that's generated per query, the organization, the date, the time is also associated with that. It's just compacted here for slide purposes. I removed the plate number and the officer from this slide, okay, just for our presentation. And then the reason for the search, okay, or why we're looking this up. So, for example, when you look at this slide, you'll see here a whole bunch of motor vehicle theft issues, okay? So if you remember at the end of, I believe it was December of 25, we had a case where we had 2 motor vehicles stolen in the same night. So what you're seeing is a slide from that, generated from that time period where the officers are going in and they're searching the camera system to see if the vehicles passed that location, you know, if we had any hits on the cameras for those stolen vehicles, okay? So that's what you're seeing there. That's why you're seeing the multiple units. And then once we recovered the vehicles, the officers were going in and searching again to see, okay, where were they you know, where did they end up? You know, did they pass any cameras in these specific locations? Okay? Kind of gives you an example.
Just a quick question on that.
Sure.
So also our officers could have, maybe they did, put those vehicles in the flock system for other cities.
Correct. Yep. Well, they would have been entered into the NCIC system. So if it would have passed the camera, then an alert would have been sent to that agency to say, hey, the stolen vehicle just went by your system, by your camera.
So do we do that automatically when we have a
Yes.
stolen?
Yep, we would do that. Okay. We talked a little bit about this. We currently have 2 cameras within the city that we operate or that are on our system. They're at West Fond du Lac Street, Highway 23, and Westgate Drive. Again, we talked a little bit about that. One of the things with Flock is that because we have the cameras there and we've done the certifications, it also allows our officers to access other cameras, okay? So it allows us to access cameras statewide, and it also allows us to access information nationwide for those cameras. So, and I'll show you in just a few minutes some examples about why that becomes important, okay? Again, we enter any wants and warrants into that NCIC, and it gives us those alerts for any entered NCIC wants on vehicles. Again, it also enters any type of missing endangered person things. We're using it for narcotics investigations. I won't get into that too much. Property crime investigations, traffic complaints. Again, remember, only identification only for those purposes, okay? Not for issuing other things. So I want to talk to you a little bit about a couple cases that kind of highlight our use and how we're using this system and what we like about it. So this was actually one of my cases. This involves a retail theft. Okay, not crime of the century here, but it kind of illustrates the tool that this system allows us to use. So we had a report of a retail theft at one of our retail establishments in the city. Based on the description from the witnesses who observed this, so basically what happened here is a subject comes into the store, one of the employees sees them putting items into a bag and walks out, okay, without paying for the stuff. Employee follows them out, sees them get into a vehicle, gets a physical description of the vehicle. Again, type of vehicle, color, those type of things. I'm showing you a black and white photo, but the photographs that we get are in color, okay? Gave us some identifiers on the vehicle, but did not give us a license plate, okay? So based on that information then, we were able to go into the flock system and use that time period to make an identification on a suspect vehicle, all right? Good. What we did then is as we searched that vehicle, so we got the identification on the vehicle, we were able to obtain the plate. What I was then able to do is take that plate, go back into the system, and search that plate over the last 30 days. And found that it had actually hit on the same cameras within that time period, okay? So taking that information, I then went back to the retailer and said, hey, this vehicle was also here on this date and time. Check your cameras and see if they possibly are in the store, the same suspect. Lo and behold, same suspect enters the store, fills up bags that time, but was not observed by the store. So they had no idea that this other theft had actually occurred. Until we went back and said, check the date and time around this time period, and they found another theft that this person had done, okay? So using that information as well, I was able to conduct a statewide search on the vehicle from the original date that had been reported to us. And lo and behold, this vehicle originated, so the registration originated from Green Bay. And if you drew a line from Green Bay to Stevens Point and southward across the state, basically what was happening is this vehicle was coming down and making big loops through the state. So by using that information that we had gained off from the flock and identified the vehicle, we were able to find 6 other communities in the state where they had cameras that were near Walgreens locations, okay, as our victim was.
Stealing from Walgreens.
And basically what they were doing was driving to these locations, to Walgreens, filling up bags and then leaving. So I contacted 6 other communities who had no idea that they were all victims of theft, retail theft. So they would contact their Walgreens, they would go in, check their security system. I sent them a photograph of the suspect. They went in, looked at him, and said, oh yeah, here he is coming in, and he did the same thing there. So we identified 6 other agencies or 6 other communities that had thefts that they were not even aware of, okay? We set up an alert with Green Bay Police Department. They were able to use their flock camera system and alert on the vehicle and make a traffic stop and identify the owner of the vehicle and help with our investigation, okay? It also allows us to also place an alert into our system where we can do a map alert. So I could set up a map alert where if the vehicle came down Highway 41 and turned onto Highway 44 from Oshkosh, it would send me an alert and say, hey, it just hit on a flock camera at 44 and 41, and it's coming your way, okay? Because we knew that he had been here several times already in anticipation in case that person came back to Ripon, okay? So that's an example of how this system can work and some of the tools that we're using for it. Go ahead.
So was he arrested? Or
whatever, was he caught, is my question.
Well, we identified the owner of the vehicle, the person that, they would not cooperate and identify who the person was driving the vehicle that day, and they have since departed our area, shall we say, okay? Another case I want to talk a little bit, and we talked a little bit about using that nationwide data, our access to that. So this was a case that we had in 2025 after we implemented the flock system. We had a local bank here call us up and indicate to us that they had a scam that had occurred where somebody had entered their bank with fraudulent ID and withdrew $5,000 from an account. Okay, the owner of the account had no idea who this person was, had no idea that $5,000 had been taken out until they received the alert from the bank. So the bank contacted us, and we were able to review bank camera footage, and this is the image that we got from the bank camera footage, okay? So, not a lot there, right, as far as a license plate that you can read, pretty fuzzy, but what we can do in the system is search type of vehicle, color of vehicle, those type of things. Now the vehicle, based on that search, we did not get anything on our cameras, okay? but we're able to do the statewide flock data search as well as the nationwide data search. So if you go to the next one. So when we entered white Nissan Rogue, okay, we found on the statewide hit, we've noticed on that same day, same type of vehicle hit at a City of Fond du Lac camera, okay?
They're in 23 and 41, right?
You're right,
Yep.
right. So, based on that, we were able to look at that plate that was captured on that system, and I'd match it with this vehicle. We also then conducted a nationwide flock data system and found that because it was a New York plate, we found basically where we followed it on the flock camera system, nationwide system, all the way from New York to here, okay?
More stuff?
Yep, and found more stuff about it, all right? Go to the next one. What we also found when we looked at that is you'll notice that one of those on the white part there, Kenosha PD. So we reached out to Kenosha PD. They had actually had the same type of incident that we had on a bank fraud. They used their flock camera system to stop the vehicle, ID it and stop the vehicle, took a suspect into custody on their charge. We looked at the suspect and said, that's the same person that was in with ours. They had multiple cases within the state. Ends up that these people are basically originated out of the East Coast, out of the New York City, New Jersey area, printing up fake identifications on people, including military IDs, traveling here, withdrawing money out of banks, and then leaving. So well over hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fraud victims across our state and across the nation, and associated back here to this. And we were able to take this person into custody. Without this tool, I don't think we would have done that, because this person was coming out of New York, New Jersey with fake identification. We got phone calls from Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security on this because of the use of military IDs that they were printing up, fake military IDs. So it just illustrates, again, the use of this system and how we're using it in reference to just property crime type of case. But I don't believe we would have solved this case or gotten an apprehension and somebody in custody if not for this tool that we were able to use. Okay. We've used it for a number of other things. We use it for an auto theft where a vehicle was recovered in the city of Milwaukee for us. We've used it on some narcotics cases. One of the things when we talk about, not only are we using it for criminal investigation purposes, but we're also using it for non-criminal issues. So if you want to go to the next one. One of those things is this dementia, medical-related issues, okay? So any type of mission-endangered person, dementia, health-related issues, we can use that system to try to find those people and try to get them back home. We had a case where we had a subject that the family had reported possibly some dementia issues, was traveling in the vehicle. We were actually getting hits on flock camera systems throughout the state. One of our officers seemed like was just minutes behind the vehicle as the vehicle went on Highway 26 through like Rosendale. Unfortunately, because of the dementia-related issues, we believe, they were later involved in a fatal accident in which they were killed. But it was just another tool that we were able to use to try to get a successful conclusion to that. So when we tend to think about these things, we think about them in the criminal aspect, but it's really another one of those tools that we can say to people, especially in these cases, we're trying to do everything possible to get your loved one home. So this is just another tool, as we talked about tonight on a couple different topics, that we can use to do that, okay? To do everything possible. So, talked a lot about a lot of information here, but just to kind of summarize again, just to go back and refresh what we've talked about, we're using it for both investigative and non-criminal purposes, okay? The access data, the record, we have both internal and external tracking of that. There's policies that are in place. There's requirements that are both by Flock and by the department in order to access this program. Clearly, the courts have said there's no expectation of privacy on that photograph of the vehicle and the plate. That's what everybody sees as you're driving around every day. What's detected is that plate, that vehicle description, color, what type of vehicle, those type of things. It's not detecting any type of facial recognition or the driver identifying any person based on gender, race, any of those other issues, okay? We've got policies in place. We've talked about what's acceptable for the use, and that's addressed in our policy that you've got a copy of. And we've also talked a little bit about the prohibited uses of this system, okay? So at this point, we don't plan on adding any more cameras, okay, to the system. The county does have a number of cameras located adjacent to us, but we feel that where we have them is helping us with our issues. Just this morning I came in and the officers were telling me that they had gotten an alert through the county of a stolen vehicle from Fox Crossing that was coming down 41. So they were relaying that to the county deputies and coming towards us, and they ended up getting that stolen vehicle on Highway 26. The county did. So, we're using it in those purposes. We're able to track any access to that by officers and make sure that we're doing an audit on that system to make sure that the officers are doing what we expect and using this program responsibly. So with that, I certainly would answer any questions you have. I also just want to mention too, this question about this, while I appreciate, bringing this up and wanting to have this open discussion, I have no issue with that because we're not covering anything up. If you have any questions about any program that we're offering at the police department, please stop and see me, stop and talk to me, contact me, call me, ask me. I'm more than happy to share any information I can about any program that we're doing and that we're using within the department. Questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So the range of a flock camera is basically a 2-lane road?
That's probably the maximum,
So
yeah.
that's why-
That's why we have two, so we have eastbound and westbound
Okay.
at that intersection.
So in Fond du Lac, I noticed that they're on the overpass over 41 on 23. I thought they
Okay.
were solar things, but so then, like, what do you do when you're on like a 3 or 4 lane highways?
They may have several of
Or
them.
put them in the middle
Yeah,
too?
yeah,
All right.
yeah. It kind of depends on the agency and what they're, looking for, I guess, and the coverage. But we found that on West Fond du Lac Street at Westgate, where these two cameras are located, because it's 2-lane, we needed to have 2 cameras at that intersection.
I'm sure they also have different technology for the cameras as well. So, different zoom levels depending on the situation. They don't just have one camera that fits every situation. They have different hardware. One, I really appreciated the inclusion of your department policy in here. I think it's well thought out. I really like the training and your accountability and making sure that, a tool, which this is used not only in a responsible way, but in a very transparent and thoughtful, and I really do believe there's some great benefits to these tools, but I also, I'm just going to voice a concern in that the same way that you can search statewide cameras, other departments who may not have such good internal control and audit can then search cameras in any other community. And that is a piece that tends to worry me. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to just bring it up and discuss it, because I think setting an example and showing how the tool is helpful and can be used correctly and used in powerful ways to offset some of that negative publicity and some of the negative things that we hear about these things. So again, I just wanted to commend the procedure and the policy and review audits that you have in the department, and I think it's really great that we have had success already with having it in place for about a year.
Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I have a question and clarification of that. And first of all, it was really neat to hear. I wish you could give regular updates of how it's been used. It feels like really, I'm like cheering you on. Way to give these people and way to help our community. So thank you. for hearing those. Where it says the prohibited uses, the immigration enforcement, traffic enforcement, those things. For clarification, is that, I understand that that's here in Ripon. Is that a practice that is decided locally, statewide, or nationally? Like where, you know?
Yeah, so some of those prohibitions on there are controlled by the ability of the program. So it can't identify drivers. It doesn't take pictures of people. Okay, so some of that you're seeing, that prohibited stuff, is based on the ability of the program. It doesn't have the capability of doing that. You understand what I'm saying? And some of that is generated from Flock's internal systems as well. So Flock, obviously we enter into a contract with them, so they outline some of that procedural issues in their training. The certification expressly prohibits some type of action and behavior. Now certainly, because we're a governmental agency, we do have to abide by certain open records requirements, okay? But we can, there are laws in place for open records that prohibit us from releasing certain information. So example, I don't release anything that identifies a person, their personal identification information, your date of birth, your driver's license number, your VIN of your vehicle. I don't, by statute, I don't release that, okay? So that's where some of those prohibited, so it's kind of a combination, if I'm answering your question right. Some of it has to do with the internal policies from Flock on the certification. Some of it has to do with our policies and procedures in reference to what we have and what we're able to do and what we're prohibited by law from doing. So I think that's answering your question.
No, it really did. And I guess, I mean, I think what perhaps is a worry is if, you know, the federal government were to say, okay, we now want you to start using it for identification of people, and that superseded anything we had locally. But what you're saying, as far as you know, the flat cameras can't necessarily
The
even
system isn't
identify.
capable of that right now. Yep. Of identifying a person. Yep. Yeah.
Any other questions?
And then I guess I'm glad we have transparency on where they're located. My guess is that once this gets out there more, the bad actors probably will start creating maps, I assume, of where they're located, but
Well,
I
yeah.
guess.
You notice one of the topics I didn't get into too far was narcotics investigations. We're already seeing some of that based on travel routes from our source cities. And again, in all transparency, we have 2 cameras. There are cameras, so for example, there's a camera located on 44 just outside the city by Seelig. That's not our camera, that's a county camera, okay? There's another county camera located on 23 by KK. That's a county camera, that's not our camera. So we only have 2, and I've told you where those are at and what we control there, okay? And again, I just want to reemphasize, if you have any questions about any programs we're offering, please come and see me. Please talk to me, and I'll be happy to meet with you. Yes? Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Chief. All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to convene to closed session under Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whether or whenever competitive or bargaining reasons required a closed session. The topic will be amending the Ripon Area Fire District bylaws and consideration of the amended budget. And we are expecting to be in closed session for approximately 15 minutes, coming back to open session to take any necessary actions.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mark, second by Doug. All those in favor of convening to closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are convened to closed session at